Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's Creatrix Conversations. We are so glad that you are tuning in with us today, whether you are going to hop on live or you're tuning into the replay. Hello and welcome. My name is Flora Ware, and it is my pleasure to be the hostess of this sacred space. And I've been hosting these Creatrix Conversations for going on 6 years now, and mostly solo shows. But in the last few years, I've started to bring in fabulous guests. And it is my absolute pleasure and honor to introduce our guest this month, Shardai, Magdalene Rose Moon. Thanks for being with us, sister.
You. Thanks for having me, Flora. Appreciate you.
Yeah,
I'm really happy to be here.
wonderful. So Shardai and I are going to be diving in to talk about what are the Magdalene Rose mysteries.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, dun dun dun, rose petals. Um, this is definitely connected to Mary Magdalene and the Magdalena path, and with her feast day coming up on the 22nd of July. And as I was tuning into inspiration about what to talk about and who to invite, I got the very clear hit that it should be about the Magdalene, about Mary Magdalene. And I couldn't think of a better person to ask to join me in this conversation, because Shardai, you are a devotee to the Rose lineage and to this path. And first, I want to share that Shardai and I met through the Priestess Presence Temple, and we both have the same mentor, Elaine Kalila. And really, I just want to say it's been such a joy. I right away knew that I'd met a kindred sister in connecting with you online. And I know we've only had a few short days in physical presence and proximity with each other at one of the retreats last year. And I've just always been so struck by your genuine devotion to the priestess path. Something I really admire about you.
Receiving that.
Yeah. So let's begin. I think a great place to begin was how were you first introduced to Mary Magdalene? When did you first learn about Mary Magdalene? And what has been your relationship with her ever since that time? Yeah.
Yeah, great place to start. Well, I was introduced to her in the context of Christianity. I grew up Catholic. And so, I can't quite pinpoint an exact moment, but I can tell you that I definitely learned in Sunday school or in youth group or wherever it was that, there was this woman who was prostitute and who, held these 7 demons in her that Jesus cast out, and, how incredible his healing powers to like rescue this woman from her evil ways. She transformed and saw the light, right? That was basically the story that I learned. And I remember vividly what's coming through is like standing in front of my youth group. It was like my chance, kind of like almost the opposite of this creatrix spotlight. It was like, okay, it's my chance to like get on my pulpit, and preach something. And I remember talking about the significance of guarding your sexuality for marriage.
Huh.
And I was so, there was something in me that felt like righteous, right? It was like, this is the good thing to do. We need to be like not tempting ourselves, whatever, don't put yourselves in situations. I was vomiting out what I had received basically in my indoctrination. And today that almost like makes my stomach churn a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Because since then, I really I got introduced to a different version of Mary Magdalene in my adulthood. And this different version from mentors who had more of a Gnostic embodied relationship with her, kind of opened the doors for me to see her differently. And I started to realize that all of this distortion around our sexuality, all of this distortion around how the church had viewed women, I would say the Roman or Orthodox Church had indoctrinated me to view women in a certain light. It was either the palatable version of Mother Mary, who is ever good and ever giving, or it is the, sinner and the whore of Magdalene.
Yeah.
And so naturally, I felt inclined to go towards the good girl. I have to be a good girl. And so many of us, I know the women that I work with, right? It's so hard to move through that kind of belief system, that there's something that invites us to be, or that there's something that we need to do or accomplish in order to be worthy.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And so when Magdalene came to me and she gave me the middle name, Magdalena, I was sitting with, okay, what's my new name? There's a new identity here coming forth. There was this powerful invitation to heal what I would call the Magdalene wound. And, for me, it's under the umbrella of the persecution wound, the witch wound, etc. But there's this flavor that the Magdalene brings. There's this certain energy of movement towards the queen archetype, towards the spiritual leader, and bringing those women back into spiritual leadership. But to do that, it's detoxing literally these systems that actively work against us as women, or against the feminine in general.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's a little bit, but
yeah, that's a lot. You shared a lot. And thank you for that, because it really is just very touching to think of that younger you, who was like just willing and in that righteousness that you so named of, like, protecting your virginity before marriage, and yeah, that just I like your use of the word distortion, the distortion around who she actually was, and her pivotal relationship with Jesus and with the other apostles, that was distorted and denied and dismissed by the church as it developed hundreds of years later, right? But also the distortion around women being in positions of spiritual leadership and women's expression of their sexuality. The fact that they tried to make her a fallen woman, a sinful woman, a prostitute, in order to elevate, the incredible extent of Jesus's forgiveness and compassion, that he could also be compassionate towards someone like that. Like, how great is his love, right? It's fascinating that we're able now in the 21st century to look, to really look at these Bible stories and these things that with different eyes. So, and it is that, who else watching, we can, I want to, see some comments in the chat as well. Who else was indoctrinated, but then also kind of fascinated with this dichotomy of Mother Mary, the ultimate virgin, and then the other Mary of the sinful woman, and the fact that they both have Mary in their names now, right? Again, like what would their names have been in, Aramaic 2000 years ago? But you're absolutely right that, of course, good people, if people try to be good, when we believe that there's only that dichotomy, of saint or sinner, when we believe that there's only the dichotomy of like victim or villain, then of course we choose the saint. We choose the victim because we don't want to be the other. So how does that affect our psyches, in terms of our spiritual relationship? Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you really hit the nail on the head there, because I mean, look, I was looking into the story of the Cathars, because we mentioned the upcoming feast day of Mary Magdalene actually lines up July 22nd with the first besiegement of one of the hideaways, if you will, of the Cathars. And they were a sect of more Gnostic Christianity that actually saw women as equal in leadership in most ways. So they were a threat to the patriarchy, and they were really the first genocide that happened, where they were over 100 years essentially wiped out. And I honestly forgot your question, but what's coming through, oh, I remember. What's coming through is just the power of how our morality has been used as a tool of warfare. Over and over again. Think of Nazi Germany, think of Ukraine. Like, there are ways in which our consciousness is so vulnerable to our ego, I would say, is so vulnerable to be shaped in a way that we can tell ourselves we're doing something good, quote unquote, and it's actually, being used as a weapon of war.
Yeah.
So,
shivers just as you articulate that, right? And it is one of those, probably the biggest thing that I could never reconcile. Now, I was not raised Christian or Catholic because my parents had already left the church. So, they were the pattern breakers, right? They were the black sheep in their families. And I'm kind of the next generation of that, being raised more pagan and everything. But of course, I still was exposed to ideas from the Christianity and the Catholic Church, and of course in media too. And the thing I could never reconcile was that Jesus's message was about love, and love thy neighbor, and that of like a real like humanitarian, and he really seemed to be all about like egalitarian and all that. And it's like, that's the message that was used to wage war for centuries, like, and continues. Like, it's just like that, that I could never make sense of it.
Exactly.
And I know that this is one of the things that you really dive into with your work. And of course, it does have to do with the growing patriarchal ideal. But, you refer to the Magdalene as the feminine face of Christ. And why has she been hidden from us? Why, and also, like, just, you speak about this re-womaning of our spirituality. And I would love for you to take us deeper into that.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I can say that, I love that word re-womaning. Just came through when I think of rewilding and re-womaning in terms of our spirituality, these two kind of reclamation movements. And there's something that happened for me when I was inside of the church, where I just started to notice that the women were gone, or that the women were literally, it was like Jesus in the center of the altar, and there was like this little box cut out of like Mother Mary on the side, and some strange woman I didn't know, random saint I didn't know. And that was that was the energetic setup. And that spoke volumes to me. And I was one of the I was still called an altar boy, even though I served on the, I was like one of the women who would, ring the bells during Eucharist, and there wasn't really like a formal place for me to serve in leadership. I could sing in the choir, which I did, but in terms of like breaching the actual altar, there were so many barriers there.
Wow.
And so what really spoke to me are experiences where I actually stepped more into, I don't know if it was Pentecostal or some alternative Christianity when I was in my rebellion years, where I started to actually go to churches that were what I would call embracing the divine feminine, embracing the Sophia, embracing, that energy that Magdalene really carried of the feminine that has been exiled. And so, okay, I would go up to the altar, cry. I would raise my hands in worship. I wouldn't just like sit there politely in my pew, I would speak in tongues, which was like so radical and weird, right? But there was something happening where I was remembering the feminine and spirituality. And I was having an embodied experience, like chills in my body, emotions moving through in a way that I was completely disconnected from in the church that I was in. It felt, my experience, it felt really stark and unforgiving. And so my mission has really been to bring back women to the center of the altar again, both as an offering of devotion. I'm here, I'm present. And also, cars driving by. And also as an offering to the collective. Like there's a way that women, we lead from the heart so naturally. We are the ministry. We are the apostle to the apostles, what Mary Magdalene became known as. And there's something that has kept us out, which is power and greed.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And we have to remind ourselves when going through any of this history that so much of it has been erased, changed, distorted. Even reading about the Cathars, so much is just like, I'm like, I don't know what to discern here. It can be really difficult to feel into the truth. And so I think this feminine movement of bringing back that energy of our embodied remembrance is so important, because together we are remembering this tradition of love.
Yeah.
And it's kind of powerful in a way that there is no book of doctrine that we're following. It's like, we have little bits of remembrance. Like, okay, I have, Megan Watterson created this amazing book following the Magdalene Gospel. And, there's scholars unveiling different documents, etc., all the time. But there's power in our remembrance. And the fact that each woman is going to remember something unique. There's some truth that we each hold. There is no one truth. There's all of our truths connected at a single point of unity. That's how I see it, in this prismatic way, that it really requires all of us to take the courage to retake back our religions, retake back our belief systems, retake back all that has been lost as a prayer for our ancestors.
Yes, beautiful. Your words are such medicine, Shardai. And yes, that book is fantastic. If anyone is, curious to go deeper, the Megan Watterson book that you showed, Mary Magdalene Revealed, and even with her resources and her background as a theologian, there are big gaps in Mary Magdalene's written gospels, like literal pages missing.
Yes. Right before it gets to the juicy
Right.
part.
Yeah. Like she said, like, what was that? It's of course so frustrating. But it's really also what you're speaking is it's so poignant and it's so true that we're remembering the way of love that is her teachings through the heart, like the heart is the map. Now,
Mm.
why do people refer to her teachings as the way of love or the path of love?
Yeah, good question. Well, I can say for me, the really that was Christ's ministry. I was walking the path of love. And just like anything, if you have a yoga practice, it's a path, it's a journey back to love, back home.
Mm.
And Magdalene and all the Marys, Mary was a title, a priestess title
Mm.
of power, and so was Magdalene. And this, Magdalene meaning watchtower.
Mm.
Just think of this like pillar of strength and just like perception of almost like guarding the sheep, right? Like, I'm here. I come to me if
Yeah.
you want me to light the way. And it's for me, walking the path of love is the most ancient path of spirituality. It's that lineage of the rose, and the rose being a symbol of the divine feminine for, aeons, forever, with the egg and the serpent. And, there's these particular images of the divine feminine that have been encoded and, gone underground and resurrected in moments. And we're really in this moment again where there's a choice being lifted into our collective consciousness. Are we choosing love or are we choosing fear?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I think this pandemic time has been a great teacher of that. And that looks differently for each of us.
Time
Yeah,
of great awakening for sure.
absolutely.
Mm. So, so the connection with the rose, then the rose lineage, the rose priestess is really that it is a symbol that has long been used to represent the divine feminine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I thought so, but it's great, really good to have your clarity. And because I know that the Knights Templar, wasn't there always roses kind of woven into the symbols of those Templar knights as well? Ooh, yeah, I got a little reaction there.
Yeah, I just got shivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we talk about bringing in the divine masculine to the conversation, there you have it. The Knights of Templar being, guardians of the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
What is the Holy Grail? The wisdom of the feminine, the bloodlines, Mary Magdalene's womb, some would say, where eternal life exists through our bloodlines, through our capacity to birth as women. That's eternal life. And so the Knights of Templar absolutely were devoted, just like Christ was, just like Jesus was, to this mission of love that the women just naturally embodied.
Mm.
And there was no separation. It was like, oh, I know my role. I know that I am to protect this wisdom. And there
Right.
wasn't an attacking or a questioning of it. There was an empowering equally on both sides.
Mm. And I'm being kind of like, I'm having a moment here just because I recently read a fantastic book by Lane Redmond, which is When the Drummers Were Women. And
Mm.
she goes back even farther into the Neolithic times. And so I had like a moment of like things coming together that, knowing that the Holy Grail is a metaphor for the womb and the source of life and the mystery and miracle of life, right, that is held in the chalice, that it's like in all through even Paleolithic and Neolithic, it was always the downward pointing triangle. Like, archaeologists joke that it's kind of like graffiti where like nowadays graffiti artists like might draw a big penis, and it's like we've been doing this, we've been drawing sex organs on walls for tens of thousands of years. But that symbol of the, you know, the holy chalice was that reverence to women's ability to bring life into the world. So, and the red, even just the red of blood and the red of the rose, just seems like it's such a strong correspondence. Oh, good. Are you back? Yes.
I
So I
heard
was talking.
downward pointing.
Yes, downward pointing. Yes, the yoni, the chalice, the holy grail. So it just for me, it's like it's been a symbol of reverence for us for tens of thousands of years, and it's just the symbol or the icon has changed shape.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the mystery of the feminine. She's
Mm.
not to be discovered fully. That's the whole point. Like, what is the rose lineage? Like, you tell me. There's a certain level, you know, that's where devotion comes in. There's a certain level of showing up for the inquiry to live those questions. You know, I think that, just to say, I think there's a disservice we do to ourselves when we overly seek the answers.
Yes.
And that's the model that we've learned, right? Oh, let's make sure we write down exactly how it is. And it's like, no, even, you know, the Bible is completely in flux. It was never really set in stone until it was like set in stone. And, you know, the same with the feminine. It's like she can't be controlled. She's wild. She's mysterious by nature. And we cannot tame that. And we should not.
No.
And so,
Devotion to the mystery of the mysteries.
yes.
Yes.
Yes, it's really leaning in, and it can be aggravating at times. I'm not gonna lie. It can be like, just tell me the answers. What is love? What is the feminine Christ? Who is she? You know, and it's, yeah, what I can say is just that each of us, I think, who are really drawn towards those ancient images, you know, the chalice, the rose, the egg and the serpent, that cosmic imprint of life, that there is something there for us. There's a reason why it's alive in our consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just encourage anyone to really follow that thread, follow that golden thread of intrigue, and just let her
Or the red thread, as it might be.
the red thread. Yes. It's like a backwards and forwards and all around movement of like reconnecting ourselves, reweaving ourselves into the tapestry of remembrance of her, of the web of life.
Mm.
And we do that every time we remember our ancestors. We do that every time, you know, for me, like moments of opening up that portal of awareness into, whoa, past lifetime. I remember this place I'm standing in right now.
Mm.
Whew, okay, acknowledgement. And we're so powerful. That's the truth. And that's why it's been hidden.
Mm. Yeah.
That's it. It's as simple as that.
It really is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew. Good. This is so juicy, all of it. So I want to talk more about the feast day. So when, you know, leading up to this, it was only 2016 that that Mary Magdalene's it had been like a memorial. This is what I learned. There was a memorial day, I guess, in the Christian Catholic calendar to do with her, but Pope Francis in 2016 basically elevated the status of this Memorial Day to a feast day, and with that, apparently also a decree that Mary Magdalene should be referred to as the apostle of the apostles, right?
Mm-hmm.
why was this so significant? What kind of, ramifications? I mean, we're living it now, what, I guess 7 years later. But
Mhm.
even from your perspective as having grown up in the church, what was the significance and what continues to be the significance of that change and that recognition from the church now?
Yeah, I mean, huge. And we're still getting there and
Yeah,
recognizing her as an actual, apostle, saint, ascended master. But for her to be seen as an apostle to the apostles really did lift her in the status of the collective. And it's going to take time for that to ripple through because there have been so many, for so long, the teachings have been, she is not that. And it was done honestly quite quietly, in my opinion. It wasn't like the newspaper headline went out, it was like, breaking news, Mary Magdalene isn't the slut you thought she was. She is actually incredibly powerful. Hear ye, hear ye. It was like, that didn't
hear
happen.
ye. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, recognizing there's more work to do, and the fact that that was recognized by the primary institution of the patriarchal Christianity as we know it is a massive reclamation. And, these aspects of the only reason why she was really kind of assimilated or like designated with these aspects of prostitute, etc., is just literally someone's interpretation of the different women in the Bible. Like,
Right.
oh, I think that was Mary Magdalene. It doesn't even say that it was her. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
so it's just interesting that I think there was whatever pressure happened, I have no idea, but just to be like, yeah, our historical accounting was a little off there, so let's just quietly you know say that we were wrong without saying we were wrong.
Oops.
Yeah, and whatever, I'm tongue in cheek because I feel like I can be, and because it's the lineage I grew up in. And I think it's powerful for other women in particular, who grew up in Judeo-Christianity or Abrahamic religions, to really like step in and take this back
Yeah.
and really take these moments and run with them. And so for me, like, offering something on the feast day, offering a feast of the Magdalens, where we are saying, hey, we're going to feast ourselves in the way that we want to be feasted.
Mhm.
This is not an institutionalized, like, like very serious and like whatever it is, right? Like, we're going to fucking celebrate. We might be wild. We're going to drop into deep devotional space too.
Yeah.
And so moments of just reclaiming, taking these little bits of like the leg up and just running with them, I think are really important for us as women. And just
Yeah.
say, I'll take the reins from here. Thanks.
Running with it, reclaiming it, reinventing it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing. And I know that that's what you're planning to do with your feast day event is, honoring her, but it's also an honoring of ourselves
Yes.
in a new way. So yeah, share a bit more about that. And,
Yeah. Well, the prophecy being that through the Cathars specifically, when 200 of them actually offered themselves, chose to not, give way to the patriarchal church, and they chose to actually ascend at that time and return later. So they offered themselves on a large funeral pyre, and they chose to do that in sovereign. I mean, they were intimidated, obviously, into doing that, but they took back their sovereign choice in that moment of the Inquisition on their doorstep, and they chose, we're going to die in the way that we want to die, and we're going to choose to come back as the many.
Mm.
And two, with Magdalene, there's this, they were so reverent of Magdalene because she also is returning as the many. It's all this path of love that is returning. And so the primary prayer of offering this feast day is that I can help open the doors to your own remembrance of your inner Magdalene. Like, who is returning through you? What does she look like? What is her unique message if she were on the pulpit again? What is her embodied teaching based on the struggles and the joys that you've had in life, be it around sexuality or sacred relationship or being exiled from places of home, leaving a beloved or something that was so precious to you, that loss. So for women who've passed through these initiations, especially of death, of sexuality, of relationship, have something really profound to remember through her, I believe, of how to return back to wholeness, to that beloved in self, and really resurrect the feminine in doing that, to her rightful place alongside the masculine. So, that said, that's my prayer, and what it looks like is hosting a day-long retreat online where we can come together and explore the three different roses of the Magdalene in our wombs, in our hearts, and in our crowns, or in our higher mind. And just deepen into a space of devotion. We're going to have sacrament together in the feminine way to remember who we truly are. We're going to pray the Magdalene Rosary with Claire Sierra. We're going to bless and cleanse ourselves in self-forgiveness. We're going and receive our own oracle messages from the Magdalene directly. So that's my invitation. And also, there are some incredible contributors, including Diana DeBrow, who recorded a beautiful self-anointing practice for us and story of her relationship to Magdalene, and several other contributors working with sacred sexuality and evolving our rage into power. And there's just this juicy spread, because I'm like, we need to be feasted, y'all, like really feasted, so that we feel our worthiness.
Yeah.
We really feel it. So
Yeah.
that's the invitation. And I offered a little special coupon code for your community if they want to join us. The early bird is over on tomorrow, end of day tomorrow. So if you want to jump in on that, you're welcome to. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Shardai. So just once again, Shardai is hosting an incredible online day-long retreat on Saturday, right? Saturday, July 22nd, because that's her feast day. And I just put the link in the chat here, and the coupon code is Rose22. That gives you $22 off. Yes. So good. So I put those in the comments for everyone. Such incredible guest contributors as well. Claire Sierra, who's written a book on
the Magdalene path.
Yeah. And Diana DeBrow, who's an incredible sent priestess.
Elaine is gonna contribute some wisdom. Mama Sophia Rose, an incredible sound healer, is gonna be joining us live. So it's gonna be sweet.
Yes.
I'm excited, if you can't tell.
Yeah.
Like, I can't wait to feast.
And I'm sure there's more information on the page, but if someone could only attend half the day, is it being recorded?
I'm gonna have all the recordings up for the whole month after the event. And right now, when you join, you automatically get Diana's recording, so you can just start even steeping in the medicine. And I'll be dripping out the other recordings as we go. So if you cannot attend live, no worries. You can really create your own sacred ritual around it, and come back to our community group when you're ready and share your experience. And it's really my intention is for it to be really community oriented. So find your
Beautiful.
way. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, for anyone who's feeling that intuitive pull, right? That magnetic pull to dive more deeply into the Magdalene Rose teachings and to be in that frequency with just, experienced and expert sacred space holders and priestesses, I highly, highly recommend you check out this event that's happening next Saturday. And to celebrate this feast day that is a reclamation and a celebration of the Magdalene. But I keep on hearing you say that it's really about a reclamation of ourselves and a celebration of the divine feminine within us and what we're remembering and how we're feeling called to express that in our lives now, like making these ancient teachings relevant for us today is
100%.
so pivotal for it to have, well, for it to take any anchor in our lives. It has to be relevant.
Yes. And just to name too quickly that, none of this is just revamping patriarchal. It's
Right.
actually it's actually reclaiming what was stolen.
Mm.
And there's ancient roots to the chalice, to taking sacrament, to anointing, to using holy waters and holy oils. And so that kind of Gnostic teaching is the intention. It's not to just put a different dress on the same story, the same dude.
Right.
It's really like, we're going to bring our own veils and vestments, and this is who we really are to show up in the world and
Thank you.
reclaim our power. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for naming that. That is such an important distinction, that it's like, yeah, it's not, yeah, not just putting a new red dress on the
The
on the
old man
old
in there.
patriarchal way of doing things. And I can certainly sense, I mean, this is my sense, even though that I'm not that person, but the healing of the church wound, the healing of the religion wound, that's my feeling, that these kinds of offerings that you are doing, and other ways that women especially are finding their re-womaning of spirituality in new ways, but that there's such potent healing ready for so many that are still carrying the wounds from the church of their upbringing. And so
That's
even
so true.
without going to church, I've had an incredible healing journey myself, because I feel like I kind of took on the wounds of my mother, especially,
Well,
as
and that's,
we do.
yeah. And just to say that's so important to name too, that yes, there's a specific medicine to have who are healing from religious wounding. And there's a medicine for every woman because every woman has not been touched by it.
Mhm.
That's the truth.
Powerful. So Shardai, is there anything that hasn't been spoken, or anything that you would like to share before we wrap up for today? This has been a wonderful, rich conversation.
I'm feeling called to just play my chalice really quick if I can.
Oh, please, yes.
I had this made in honor of her. I'm just receiving whatever transmission. those who have ears to hear, for those who have eyes to see, for those who have hearts to know. May we remember her. May we remember we are love.
May we remember we are love. Wow. Thank you so much, sister.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me, and for all of you for receiving this sweet medicine and this conversation.
So wonderful. Ooh, those vibrations went right up my neck into like the back of my head. And I was like, yeah, just amazing. So if you want to connect more with Shardai, through the link that I put in the chat. Also, you're of course on Facebook. You're also on Instagram. Reach out to her if you have questions about the event next Saturday. I hope that you find, that remembrance and that resonance. Shardai, thank you so much for being with us today on Creatrix Conversations and sharing your beautiful rose medicine.
My pleasure, sister. Thank you.
Okay, bye for now, everyone.
Aloha.